Hey everybody, welcome to our Thriving Lives community Zoom call for the month of June. Tonight's topic is actually a client spotlight with Ben Killoy, who's been with Thriving Lives for a little bit over a year, I believe. I think it was like April maybe of 2024 that you
I
reached.
agree.
Anyway, though, but before we get into that client spotlight and hear all about Ben's story and his journey, let's hear how the last month has been. Renee, I know you were just doing some traveling. Tell us about it.
Yes, I was in Arizona, which was a lot of fun. I hiked and I did some like rock climbing type stuff, which my doctor told me not to do, and it was fine. So that's good.
Broken foot, you mean?
My toe. Toe didn't hurt. It was great. So that was good. And then I just kind of handled that. Like I just kind of ate whatever I really wanted to within again my allergies. But like didn't track or anything. And then the week coming back, I didn't get home till super late that night before. Then I had to go to work the next day at 7. And so I already had some like microwavable rice that I could use. And then I bought like pre-grilled chicken like right before I left. And so that was already in the fridge, ready for me just to heat up. And then I went to the store, I think like the next day or something, and just got more like easy chicken and rice stuff because I was like, I am not gonna cook. Um, but I also didn't want to just eat out all week. And so handled that in that sense. Um, Leg days are still looking a little bit different. I can't do my normal like weight and I can't do like some certain exercises still. So I'm just kind of playing that by ear. I just told Marcus I did an hour on the Stairmaster today, which is absolutely insane. Um, but just a good sign of like, yeah, you have like you can do this and you don't die and this is good. Like cardio health, I feel like. Um, and now it's June and busy social life still. And I don't know what else. I mean, my clients are doing well.
Killing
I,
it. All things are going good.
yeah, that's
Beautiful,
me.
beautiful, beautiful. I'm happy you're able to do a Stairmaster for an hour with that toe of yours. Sounds like it's a
Yeah,
beautiful.
I know that was good too. I was a little worried and it was totally fine. Um, I like got off and I'm like, this is great. And I was standing around, I was like, I might try some like leg day stuff before I get on the call. And then I was like, I think my legs are hurting just a little bit. So probably not the best idea. So
Makes sense.
yeah.
I'm happy you're able to do that. Ben, how about yourself, man? How was the last month?
Been a weird but interesting, challenging. My kind of mantra is meet myself where my feet are every day. Whether that be I've got a morning routine that's open and I get to go to the gym with Evan, or whether it's just client meetings, or it's making sure that I'm just on my chicken and quinoa diet that you have me on. Not even chicken and quinoa, it's turkey and quinoa every day. Uh, and just almost just getting better and better at just falling in love with stupid normal,
Yeah.
and where it's just like um I heard a recent story, might as well fire up one of the colloyisms already here. But I heard a story in a podcast where I think it was Jay Shetty, and he was talking about his experience
He's
going
the
to
best.
The Buddhist monk's place, and he was talking about sleeping on a mat. And he's like, "Why do you have to sleep on a mat?" The guy interviewing him, and because like there's beds, why would you need to sleep on a mat? And he's like, because your body starts to feel pain when you're sleeping on a mat, and part of the meditative experience is to go beyond the pain. And if you never get that uncomfortable, you never go that deep. And so it's kind of just forcing that where you don't seek joy and you focus on just boring, because then you keep after going deep instead of finding a sugar rush to make you happy, which is was my ultimate default. But
Solid.
we're a week away from switching gears here, or Friday is switching gears to school being out and chaos of everybody being home, and also grieving a little bit because it's been Evan and I for the last year. It's hard to believe I kept him alive for a whole year, but I did. And transitioning to summer gears and letting go of one season and embracing another.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I love all that. Just recognizing the season you're in, and yeah, the last year and so being with Evan full time and killing it with that. You mentioned possibly taking him to the gym and such. When you take him to the gym, do you like is there like a daycare there that you
Yeah, there's like a kid zone there.
beautiful.
I'd like back in March, I think. it was like to the point where we were just sitting around doing nothing in the morning. And because I can't really do housework, he's very kind of just, you need to be there in the room. And I'm just wasting time, I felt like. And it was also at the point where I was kind of keeping him out of there so he didn't get sick. And so then we were kind of testing it on the weekends because my wife has the kid care on her membership. So when she goes, we could test it and it was working well. And I was like, well, let me test it. So I paid for a few. And then it was a simple, it was working and it was extra $10 a month for the membership. So I was like, we did it. And now probably at least 3 times a week, we go from like 8 to 9:30 and just it's my 90-minute brain break and he gets 90 minutes of fun with the other kids and just has a blast as far as I can tell. And so it's just that it it's just giving the permission to do things that are for me and meeting myself in those moments. Because sometimes the other thing that I'm kind of proud of is by putting it in the morning, I've given myself a wide container. So, like, if you have a morning gym habit, you sleep in, you're screwed the rest of the day. But if you have a post get on the bus habit, like I do, or essentially to lunchtime, I could go to coffee at 9:30 and hit the gym at 10, or I can go to the gym and after that hit a coffee at 10.
Yeah.
So, like, no matter where I was at, I would finish something in the morning and be like, yo, we got an hour and a half before lunch or nap time. Let's go to the gym. And I was really proud of myself for if I had the 90 minutes, I would squeeze it in and get there.
I love that. I love that. We started taking Lola to the daycare at the gym at like March or something of that nature, and it's been awesome since then. It's been great for her. We ripped off the Band-Aid, which was, I mean, you have 4 kids, this is our first one, so like ripping that Band-Aid off of having other people that are not like family and friends watching her was tough for us in general. And even still now, we'll still put an air tag on her just in case. But it's still been so nice to be able to do that, and for me to actually not have to just get a 20-minute workout in, but now I can actually go there, take my time. I still will go pop my head around the corner just to check on her, just to see like are the daycare people like helping out, or like are they attending to her? Is she playing well with other kids and whatnot? So it's been awesome. It's been awesome. Um it's been great. It's been great. So
And for the first year, when we first started, like I lost the morning gym habit. I had always had a pretty good morning gym habit for 5 a.m. And it just, I think the thing I discredited is how much tension keeping a child alive holds on your conscious, and you're just more exhausted than normal when you go to bed, which then makes it that much harder to get yourself out. And so I always felt like a failure for that year of like never getting into the gym and losing track of that habit and then checking in with you and feeling more like I didn't make progress. And so this is like the best of both worlds because he's awake, he needs to do something, it burns a lot of energy. I get my time. I even find benefit out of it because I love going to the sauna, and my challenge is can I change someone's life in 10 minutes or less? Um, I actually had record. I did that because someone came up to me at the gym this past Saturday and it's like, "Are you Ben Killoy?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I didn't remember this guy at all. And he's like, "You talked to me about 6 months ago in the sauna, and I was trying to look you up on Facebook, but I couldn't find you anymore." So we took care of that. But his girlfriend was 12 weeks pregnant, and so like that what's prompted him to say something again. But that was some random thing I said to him 10 or 6 months ago. So and I just feel good being around other adults. I don't know about you, but just talking to normal people, like that feels as good as a cold glass of water on a hot day some days.
I completely agree. And that's actually a good segue into kind of, your starting point with it because, one of the things I remember you saying at one point in this journey was you didn't feel like you necessarily belonged to the gym, or like that wasn't you, or I might be, misquoting you on that situation.
No,
But
you're accurate.
but the fact that you're able to have that kind of deeper conversation at the gym, I think it is huge. So let's take this all the way back to the very beginning of kind of where you were physically and mentally when you first reached out to me and why you reached out in the first place. And did you have any obstacles or reservations before you said, "Hey, let's go ahead and do this"?
I would say the only initial reservation was comparing it to previous attempts and why it didn't work, and is this the right thing to do when the other things that I had done didn't work? Because lots of things have made progress, lots of times have lost the weight, but either pregnancy for my wife came around and then as she gained weight, I gained weight, or she had grave anxiety. went along for
Did
the
you
ride.
know that there's actually like a physiological response in the male body when your wife is actually pregnant and you're like living with her daily? Obviously,
I
you
didn't know about it, but I could believe it because even
are,
just the
are
connection chemical and oxytocin, we have a similar oxytocin response with the child as well that they do.
exactly. And like I'm pretty sure I don't know the exact data around it, but I'm pretty sure your estrogen actually raises as a man with a pregnant wife there next to you. So that kind of sympathy weight is like a real thing, and that's a physiological response on top of, hey, if she's craving whatever, then I'm gonna eat with her or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the big giant elephant that's been in the room for every attempt is I don't have any memory of looking myself in the mirror and seeing myself in the body that I essentially wanted, as far as not having a belly, not having man boobs, and seeing like, man, I crushed my goals. Even in my time in the Marine Corps, I think there was some of it I wasn't as deeply aware. I know I wasn't because I'm definitely more aware now. But back then, I never, even when I came out of boot camp, I was 176. And I feel an idiot of like not just looking in the mirror and thinking, like, wow, Ben, you did it. And like really soaking in that. Like, I got no memory of that. I got no idea of what that looked like or how close I was even. And so not having that also then like am I a guy that can do that? If I've never been able to do it, how do I know? Maybe guys like me, which is something I've always dealt with, is guys like you don't do things like that. But other people can do it, but not you. So getting over that hump of that crappy limiting belief, like, and I say that out loud to say that that's how it started. But as I've talked to you many times, there are times the closer I get to my goal, the louder that voice gets, telling me just to let go and go back to who I've known my entire life.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. So my follow-up question to that, goodness. Renee, you want to take it for a second?
Um, Let me get the question, sorry. Do you feel like you have like a wake up call or like you feel like you realize something needed to change?
I had not necessarily like a traditional wake up call, like heart attack or some big awakening. I would say the wake up call was 2017 ish, and I was just tired of my pants not fitting. I think I was
Yeah.
at like a size 42, 43 or something. Now I'm a 40 or 34. And I was just like, I am done with this struggle of my pants not fitting. Like, because that's the, I don't know, most common yo-yo. Up, down, wrong size, too tight, too big. And I was just tired of it. And at the time, there was a group that was going on, and it was a nutrition coach and a gym guy. It was like $100 for 8 weeks, and I went all in. And it was really the first time that I realized I had a fear of the gym and a fear of the failure. Because for me, the Marine Corps actually almost left a fitness trauma because I was never a good runner and I was never a good Marine in the standard of fitness that the Marine Corps put on me. And I was always someone who fell out of runs. So there was this, I mean, there's probably at least 300 reps in my time in the Marine Corps of going on a run as a platoon and not being capable enough and falling back. And there was just this giving up. And I hated that. So I avoided that like the plague for whatever 10 years that it was since 2017 because I got out in 2007. And that's really where I even learned the value of what Marcus does, where you just load the workouts in, like skip the thinking, just go in, turn it off, do the work, and leave. Don't like you don't have to analyze, you don't have to worry. It's just show up, do the thing, and get out.
Don't
And
overthink
that's where it's
things.
kind of like holding my hand to get across that finish line. Even today, that's still a feature that I enjoy where because for me, I've talked about this, Marcus, my mind doesn't want me to remember how to organize workouts. And I can remember a lot of stuff really well, like to a point where people are like, how did you do that? But when it comes to the fitness routines, and like people will talk about like muscles and different stuff, and like, oh yeah, I'm working this muscle and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I got nothing for you. Even though I probably have done workouts in it, even I've read information on it, it's still something that just has never stuck. So my mind actually keeps that information tucked away because it knows it's essentially the talisman for my transformation. And so having someone hack that part of the ego in my mind, that has been it's always been the best part of outsourcing your risk to someone else and helping them walk you through that risk so you don't have to potentially end up messing it up on yourself, which can still
That's a
happen,
very
but it's definitely
valid
lowering the
point.
risk.
Yeah.
What, Renee?
I was just say that's a very valid point. I think a lot of times people are like scared to do things on their own. And so it's almost like if you do hire a coach, like in your mind, you almost have like a little bit of blame if you don't get there. Like you can shift blame. And so it's almost like a safety net. I think. I don't think I've ever really thought of it that way until you kind of pointed that out. But yeah, it's like you have someone else as a risk of like,
Yeah.
It really,
yeah.
it's just you just got to wake up, show up. And I mean, the other kind of interesting thing is like, even if you're not fully in it, like even if you get halfway, that's more than you would have done staying in bed. Or my favorite
Mhm.
joke is even if you made it to the gym, you're still laps around the person that's still in bed. And so sometimes you meet yourself halfway, and still half of a workout is still better than zero of a workout. And then if you didn't know what to do, then it just kind of gets watered down, and you'll maybe do three things mediocre. And the worst part about that is, from a psychology point of view, is if you keep going to the gym and you're doing your own workouts and you consistently feel like crap, like you're not getting effective, your brain's going to be like, why am I consistently going to a place where I feel like crap? And then it will come up to an idea of, I mean, I think I got a gym membership way back in 2008 when I first got out. I never went at all. I paid probably for like a year on it. And ultimately, it's because why would I keep going to a place that reminds me how much I suck? And so outsourcing that to you guys, that gives you that you only have one thing to do, show up, which is still pretty hard. But if you can get past that, everything becomes possible. And that's really what you need is like you just need to be in the room with the right information, and you guys provide that, and results follow.
Like you just pointed out, for some people that are just trying to develop the habit of just of going to the gym and they want to start with like I want to do amazing workouts. I'm like, I don't care if you even do a work. I don't even care if you touch a weight. Just show up to just the act of walking into the gym, go into the locker room or just go do 10 minutes of walking on the treadmill. Eventually, again, you're there and you're going to end up doing better and better and better with it. And obviously, if you have a plan to go follow, then you might not feel comfortable with doing that plan initially, but maybe a month in, maybe if you've been consistently going 2 or 3 times, like, all right, I've gotten over the hurdle, the obstacle of just showing up, and now I can start layering in kind of the next thing. Something that has always been truly amazing to me, and watching your journey, Ben, is so many people struggle with self-talk and like that self-doubt and just that internal voice and the dialogue they have with themselves. And I know you obviously have struggled with that, and we all do, right? Like we're all our kind of biggest critic with it. However, I think what's different in you that I don't see in a lot of people is you're very self-aware of that, but then can outwardly have a conversation about exactly those things. And it comes from a very vulnerable spot that's very hard to overcome. But just like if we were a therapist, which we're not, but if we were, you have to have those very, very uncomfortable conversations that is probably way harder than the actual act of working out or doing anything else. And if we can't overcome the mental hurdles, we're never going to get to the actual physical pieces that we all kind of aspire to try to get to, if that makes sense.
I mean, there are so many different layers of what you're talking about. And one, I think it was last fall, I kind of figured it out. I had this idea of I hated the gym. But then there was this like, because I would always have like a 6 week good and then it was kind of fade. And it's like, where's that coming from? And I had this epiphany that I was literally walking around the gym with this subconscious fear that wasn't illuminated yet, that someone was going to come up to me, tap me on the shoulder, and tell me, get the fuck out of here. You don't belong. Sorry for my French.
No, you're good.
But that's how it sounded in my head. And like that feeling of not belonging was like a key thing of like pushing me back and like realizing the interesting progression of that horrible thought is now when I look at myself, even when I'm on Zoom, I was thinking about it before I clicked here. I'm like, God, I look sexy tonight. And I'm walking around to the gym now, just like this guy that came up to me and said, hey, are you Ben? I think there are people walking around the gym who are intimidated by me. Like, I think I've gone the complete 180 where I'm still might be intimidated by other people, but I think just in the way I carry myself now, I've come so far that my mindset hasn't caught up. That if I were to take a poll, people are like, yeah, I look at you all the time wondering what is that guy doing that I'm not doing, even though I'm probably secretly doing it to them. And it's that where you don't have that awareness to realize you probably have already met goals that you haven't given yourself permission for. And it's just a matter of realizing that the reality is continuing to change. You've changed. And sometimes those self-talk doesn't catch up because it's still trying to get you to go back to the person you
Yeah,
always were.
because
I think
even
that's
though it's an uncomfortable spot to be, it's still comfort because you were there for so long. Renee, sorry, what were we gonna say?
I was gonna say I think that's huge and spot on. I think we're all often our own like worst critic, and the fact that you said like your body's caught up, but like your mind still is like in that like little place, and like the same experience has happened to me at the gym. People like look at me and they're like, "Oh my God, like are you training for a show?" Or like you look great or whatever, and I'm like, "No, you look great. Like thank you." I don't like it's almost like hard for me to receive that compliment. Like the more it's gotten better like the last few months, but for a while there, I was like, it's shocking when you're like, oh, you're right. Like, I guess I have come a long way, or things like that. Like, other people notice it before you. And so, yeah, exactly. Of you saying you caught like your mindset caught on later, is huge. So, very well put. And again, that's a very common feeling in the gym. I think I have girlfriends that I talk to as well, and they would say the same thing of like, oh, like, you think I look good? Like, thank you. I don't consider myself that. So it's a lot of people I think feel that way in the gym.
Yep.
Something I miss about my grandma is she would always tell you if you put on a few pounds, but she'd also always tell you if you lost a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people don't do that anymore, either on the positive or the negative. They'll still maybe reach for it on the positive, but it's rare because it's like asking a woman if she's pregnant. Like you don't know if she's pregnant or if she's just overweight, so you don't risk it. And I feel like that just doesn't happen to get that check in of like, oh, like what are you doing? Another interesting thought that I've learned to get myself motivated in the gym, although now I take a shower at the gym, so this kind of cancels it out. But maybe a few years ago, I would go to the gym, I would go to the sauna, I would have a big sweat on, and I would come out. The sun would be shining as it just set rising up, and it would just feel so good to have the physical work on my shirt. Because especially in the brain work of today's world, we often forget what physical work feels like, and we forget what it feels that it's real. Because like mind work doesn't feel real, it just feels exhausting. But like when you put energy into fighting against gravity, that's real. And so when I would walk out, I would be like, I want to get addicted to this feeling. Walking out with the sun hitting me, the day ahead of me, a workout in, physical sweat dripping from my shirt, feeling like $1 million. That's the feeling I want to get addicted to. And that feeling would often pull me out of bed because I'd want to get that feeling because everything was better the rest of the day. It's like having a good cup of coffee. Everything was better after I had that sweat in my shirt. And so sometimes it's like if there's a moment in your workout that like right at the end you feel really good about a workout and the progress you did, how proud you are that you showed up, really get conscious to how it feels because that's something we often don't is just like get really like do a body scan, feel what it feels like inside you to be after that workout and get really creative with the words you describe it and then sink those in and get addicted to that versus
How did you
bag
do
of potato chips.
think so? So many people like that's how I feel when I leave the gym, right? And that's truly what anybody, I don't care your starting point, or obviously at one point you didn't feel like you even belonged in the gym, but you got to that point. So my question to you is, how did you get to that point where that became something you craved versus the starting point was, I don't want to go to the gym. That sounds awful for all the reasons you already kind of named. So what do you think was it, or was there a magical piece? My guess, and I want to hear your answer, but my guess to it is you kept going until that happened. You just kept persevering through the tough days until one day, and obviously part of this is your self-reflection and your check-ins and such, which I think probably facilitated some of that, but ultimately you just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it, just trusting that I'm showing up for myself and this is a positive thing. And eventually it became very positive. So what do you think was that magic piece that shifted you from one to the next?
I would say there's a couple progressions. The idea of getting addicted to the sweat actually came from a story I heard about quitting smoking. That if you want to quit smoking, get really mindful of what it tastes and feels like in your mouth after a cigarette. Because most smokers, to my knowledge, they don't pay attention to it. But when you do, and you get really mindful and just like, what does it smell and taste and feel like in your mouth? It feels disgusting. And so you're like, well, that's silly. This is a horrible bleh. And by getting mindful about that feeling, you start to avoid the feeling. So I was like, I wonder if it was almost like the flip of that. What could I get addicted to if I became mindful of it? So that was kind of planted. The other thing that I've learned is realizing that because a lot of weight can be connected to shame, our own body shame and guilt for letting ourselves get here, I conditioned in my head as a sub story that the gym was my penance, that this is where my shame would go to get punished. And eventually I would just get tired of punishing myself. And I don't know, it was probably at some point a question with you because this was within the last year, I think. Um, I realized it's not punishment, it's not body shaming. It's actually the purest form of love that you can show your body. And I remember this moment, and this kind of a precipice that takes this getting addicted to feeling is I was on the Stairmaster, and it was something I was loving. I was loving doing and pushing through, and because the shirt gets really sweaty, it's one of those things that like always gets my shirt sweaty. And but it felt like punishment, and I was like, this isn't punishment, this is love. And so it was actually just doing the Stairmaster and saying, I love you. That these reps were how I was telling myself love. But early on, in the way that different childhood traumas can happen, we get it backwards of how love is received. My grandma made pies to make me happy. And so sugar was how I felt love, not physically working. And working at a farm, nothing about physical labor on the farm was loving. It was all very sweaty and dirty and unforgiving and hot and just bleh. And so that relationship with my own body and being around a bunch of farmers, they're not always the healthiest. So there's not like a mindset. They just do the work. They don't pay attention to their body. If anything, they're breaking their body. But
Yeah.
the idea of that this is actually the rawest form of love that I can do. And by doing it, it's the treat your body like a temple, but it's actually, that's good, but it's not really, it doesn't have any utility. So I've been really thinking about how can I create advice that has utility? Like you can actually cut something with it like a utility knife. And treating your workouts like a verb of an act of love to yourself is this thing that like makes you can over time you would just get really mindful that this is how I feel really good about myself. Like I have some of my most inspirational posts working out simply because that's where I'm essentially worshiping the body that is myself. And in that euphoric moment of love, I usually have really good ideas when I'm in the uplifted moment. That's a really deep, long answer to your question, but
No, but I mean that's exactly what I want. I know you have awesome things to say with it. So, okay, so you talked about kind of loving yourself, and that kind of leads me into kind of my next question here with it is some people their hesitancy is that they're taking time away from their family. Obviously, in your situation, you're not you kind I guess you're kind of taking away time with your son and whatnot. But how do you I guess my question here is to the person who thinks that prioritizing their health is selfish or unnecessary, because you also coach you coach men too, right? And I probably
mhm.
know that there's some of this component here that fitness is obviously going to be very beneficial to everybody in some way, shape, or form, and physical movement, and like you said, make that investment and give yourself that form of love. But what would you say to that person who feels like it's unnecessary or selfish to do to take that?
Couple different layers on this. I would say the first one, the simplest reframe is this not selfish, it's selfless. So that's a common word swap that I've heard that taking care of your health is the most selfless thing that you can do for yourself because this was a way early, like 2016 thought. It got me through one diet. I think Nutrisystem is what it got me through. And it was essentially like, what right do I have to take years away from my kids experiencing me as a grandfather? And essentially, the choices that I make now will either enhance or detract how long I get to be around for them. And how selfish is it that I make a choice that's selfish now that doesn't prolong that, especially if you're like if within the category of like smoking, where it's clearly taking years off your life and taking a mindset that if I want to be there for 10 plus years or however long, like the choices I make now are directly predicting that. And it's a selfish thing to take that time away from them that we had potentially if you had your parents as adults and realizing that's really the bank account that you're withdrawing from. So that was like a first for anybody that's listening. I'm on round one. That one will get you through round one because that's a good nut kicker. and for the women, the boob puncher that will essentially get you into the wake up call that like you're taking time away from a bank account that we don't really have a right to take away from because our kids want us to have be around, and we're just going to cause early essentially grief because they didn't get to experience us as adults. So that was number one. And in the idea of like getting to the point where you realize that you're doing it for yourself, it's kind of this idea that your kids are going to follow whatever example you have. And there's this new thought that's fairly new as my thinking is you will never get more than what you believe you should have. And if you believe that this is who you are, the universe will never give you more of what something you don't think you are. So I will never get six pack abs if I don't believe I could walk around with six pack abs. And that there's these limiting beliefs that it will never go as far as you currently believe you can. And a lot of times when I'm talking to people and their goals, you can have a new client potentially who's got the motivation, who knows the need to, but ultimately, if there is a childhood trauma, a voice inside their head that's not theirs, potentially someone in their life that was extremely negative and told them whatever story, no amount of coaching will outrun that belief system because it's going to keep being essentially a what they call upper limit to how far you can grow. And that's where your self-sabotaging behavior will show up because you will subconsciously sabotage to keep yourself at that thermostat set. And that belief system will also be something. So if you want your kids to have a healthy relationship with fitness, then we need to follow it. And you will only get as much as you're willing to believe. So, and another thought to think about when it comes to both men and women, our ceiling is their floor. So, however high we can reach as human beings for ourselves, that will be the starting point for our kids. And whatever we choose not to deal with, whether it be a trauma, an issue, a weight issue, anger issue, whatever you choose not to deal with, that will be something that they have to pick up from square one and potentially have to clean up before they even get to start. And so, whatever you can work through essentially interrupts the pattern from being passed on and gives your kids a better start from where you're at. So, recognizing that the stakes have never been higher for what you're going to leave behind. Your legacy is what you leave in them, nothing else, nothing more. And you can either leave behind an inheritance that unlocks the universe, or you can leave behind a pile of trauma that takes them a decade to unwrap.
Dude, it's almost like I told you everything to say because these are all the same things that I try to
That's
preach.
why I said don't worry about it because this is what I do for a living.
No,
So
yeah,
Yeah, what do you do for a living?
in the simplest form, I help people create impact in whatever category they want, whether that be in their business, whether that be in their life, their marriage, their career, whatever area they're trying to have a deeper impact and more significance in, I help them get out of their way.
Okay, so you like a life coach almost?
If that's the area of impact that I was becoming, yes. But I could also be an executive coach if you were trying to have more time at home, or if you're trying to grow your business and have more impact within your business, it would become a business coach. So it's less about the title and it's more about like if you're chasing for impact, I'm the guy that's going to help you make it. It's almost like I ask the way I say it is I ask questions that hit with the velocity so fast and deep that it creates a crack and allows for a breakthrough to happen. And
Yeah.
because a lot of my questions are very knife, samurai, sword questions, and those questions aren't niched. They're fundamental to life. And that's why everybody who runs into me, they'll be like, you left an impact on me, Ben. So after
Yeah.
5 years of trying, I've just now shortened cut it to, I'm going to leave an impact on you that changes your life.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, you have a very interesting outlook on a lot of things, I think, of like a lot of things I feel like you are saying are going to resonate with a lot of people.
I
And
burned the niche box and I'm just focusing on what I call the reverse niche. I just focus on
yeah,
what people want, which is impact. And I'm good enough at my job that I can do that in almost every category that's so far come across my desk.
yeah, I like it. Cool.
Yeah, dude, again, all those things are just perfect. I wish I could just shake everybody and just say, just get this, and that's the PE teacher me, the father me as well. But it's just one of those things where like we become our parents. I mean, kind of like you pointed out, and we're setting the bar, we're setting the image of what, again, as we're growing up until we're a teenager, we think our parents do everything right, financially, health wise, like they are superheroes. You're a superhero, and they're gonna emulate, or they're gonna do all the things that you're demonstrating essentially until they choose not to, or like you said, they're gonna have to break the traumas or the habits or whatever that you've now instilled upon them. And one of the things you also point out too is like things stick with us from childhood that were just said, right? So, like, I had so many kids when I was a PE teacher that hated PE, not because of anything I've ever done or anything that we ever did in the gym, it's because of conversations their parents had. Oh, I hated PE for this reason. I hate running. And when we talk about fitness in a negative context or eating healthy or see those things as punishment, hey, I'm going to go work out because I don't like how I look or because I need to lose fat or whatever else, instead of just saying, hey, I want to be strong. I want to be able to run fast or whatever. Like we have this negative context associated with it. So our kids hear that negative context and they always have that with them. And they have to then hopefully learn it or break it or whatever. And it's just putting them behind the eight ball where it shouldn't. And people don't understand that, but when you hear it like you just kind of pointed out for everybody, it's very clear that impact that it's leaving on them.
You reminded me of one other way to think about this. This is from a width point of view. This isn't just the health. Most people's biggest problem is they don't know what they inherited as normal is really effed up, and they've confused their normal with normal when really it's light years from it. And so the way that I see this a lot in marriage coaching is people think they inherited a good marriage from their parents. And the first red flag for every client about a marriage is they'll tell me how good their parents were in the first 5 minutes, which essentially is just a lie they needed to believe in order to survive. And they inherited really a level two, and they're using it in their current marriage, and they can't figure out why it's not working. Well, you have the code for a level two marriage, and there's a whole other 8 levels. That really applies to your career, your how you define success, how you define being a good dad, how you define being healthy. Most people just really have poor definitions of what normal is. And the other thing to think about when it comes to selfish, it's actually I don't know if selfish is the right word. A-hole is coming to my mind that our kids are learning what normal is by watching us. And there's a good little ditty that you normalize what you normalize. So whatever you want to be the normal for your kids, that only comes from you. So if you don't like the standards that you have or the standards you inherited, one of the hardest nut kicking boob questions I ask is, yeah, your life didn't work out the way you wanted. Okay, that's all said. Maybe therapy can help you unpack it. But there's only one question that matters. What are you going to do about it? And that's the precipice for everything, whether it be your marriage, your life, your career, your health, is you can, and this is what essentially keeps me going, because even on my worst days, I'm not going to give up because I know where I'm going. I know that the enemy is distracting me so that way I don't reach my full potential. And knowing that where I'm going, we're not going to need roads, and that that part of me just keeps going because what I'm going, I want to provide a model for everything to my kids that doesn't have or has as many few bugs as possible. But I have to normalize that first. And if I didn't get it inherited, I have to inherit a new set of information. I have to download a new set of knowledge, and I have to bring in a whole new set of actions, like normalizing your kids' parents going to the gym, normalizing seeing your kids do push-ups in the living room, like whatever it may be, whatever that normal is, that's what they will consider normal. And there's little kids learning what normal is by watching you. The question is what you're leaving behind worth following?
Nailed it, dude. Nailed it. Nailed it. I have all these like follow-up questions that I kind of you're answering before I even get to them. So that's absolutely perfect. And yeah, I'm glad that we're recording this because more and more people definitely need to hear this. But okay, so I mean you've already kind of explained it, but what do you think you're teaching those children? Like how has this transformation you've gone through? How has your you see that doll there? The Lola's new.
Yes, I did. You just see the little hairs just fly
This is
by.
this is Lola's first doll, and this is
Gorgeous.
Henrietta. She grabs her and carries her around like this. She lost her arm. She's lost her dress. That's Henrietta. Anyway, sorry to get off topic there, but the doll came into the view. I had to bring it up. But no, so Ben, as the father you are, and with your four children, how do you think this transformation has impacted them or yourself? Or maybe has it opened kind of that door to be like, okay, this is my new normal and this is their new normal as well?
I would say there's a few points where that humanizing yourself to your kids is rule number one almost. That there are ups and there are downs. A lot of parents think we need to protect our kids from our struggle. The struggle is where lessons are learned. As a veteran, many veterans will protect their kids from their story. Even from World War II, many veterans never passed on their story, even though the wisdom of their truth and the hard earned lessons are in their story. So for me, it's providing an example in this particular case, like weight, of having something really difficult and continuing to work through it, to continue to model that, like you're learning, I'm still learning at 40. And which is something I often think about, that I'm 40 and I still have a lot figured out, but I have a lot that I don't. And then I think how crazy it is that we look at our kids at 6 and 10 and think, well, who the hell are we to judge that they don't have it figured out? And then why would we put a perfect mindset on them and hold them to a standard that we at our adult age still have not figured out? That like dichotomy of lacking the human part of that is like, we're both, I've never been 40 on this particular day of my life. I'm learning, just like they've never had this particular day at their age. And even my oldest, I've never parented a child greater than what she is every day. And so we've humanized that part where like you're learning and I'm learning. I've never parented. I don't know. The other kids, they get the benefit from all your mistakes. That's just the nature of parenting. And that the first one always has the roughest go at it. But that modeling of what life looks like as a pursuit of more, but while learning that there are struggles and that momentum is messy, and continuing to be someone that creates that vulnerability that we can talk about hard things. My kids know that I have struggled with my weight. My kids, although from their perspective, they're like, Dad, you're not overweight. And I'm like, the scale says differently. The scale literally still labels me in the obese category. So, like, those perceptions are also real, but realizing that component, by humanizing it, they ultimately bring me more stuff because they don't see me as someone perfect without flaw. They see someone with flaw, but continuing to get better. You're muted.
That's true. And the key word there is that you're open to getting better and growing.
Because that's a true idea when we think of leadership. Like leadership is a pursuit that doesn't stop until we're 8 feet under. And that idea of always learning and always growing. Even people like Zig Ziglar, they didn't start becoming Zig until 45. I'm still early in my prime. And so to think that the best is behind me, something when I had a mindset when I turned 40 is essentially the back 40 is behind me and the next 40, like thinking of it like a golf course, the back nine, the front nine, it's my best 40 ever. And in some cases, when we're young, if anyone's listening to this in their 20s, like your 20s is just an adventure to figure out more of who you are. And at 40, I have a better idea of who I am, but I'm still learning every day. For example, that word impact, I didn't come up to that until February when we both came back from the unconference. That word was actually in my life all over, but I couldn't see it. And then once I came back from the unconference, I picked up on that word. And I'm like, this word is literally all around. I got notes and messages all around, people saying, Ben, you made an impact. You left an impact. And I just couldn't see it. And I didn't come up with that until February. And I've been on this self-growth journey for 10 years. So there's always these layers and depths and pursuit. And it's the modeling to your kids of how mental health looks, even, especially nowadays, as hard as mental health is for kids. And even just realizing why it's so important to have those relationships. Even something is like random parent advice that I always give is early in life, your kids will test you with little things that don't matter. So that later one day they'll bring you the big things. And if you're not paying attention to your own little things, you most likely will dismiss their little things. Like to them, a playground issue in third grade is just like you lost a job. They're both world ending. Their world is the playground. And if you say dismiss it, then you're essentially planting a seed that what I care about or what I'm worried about doesn't matter. And you won't be the first call when they're in an accident. And most people don't wake up until someone calls and said, "Hey, my girlfriend's pregnant," or "Dad, I'm pregnant," and they realize they missed a few steps. These are the things that we're normalizing now as young dads that our kids are going to utilize as code for how life works later on. We just don't realize it until you're at that point. You're like, I think I missed a few chapters.
That's so powerful, and I guarantee that everybody that's listening to this, I know Renee and I could probably come up with stories of that nature, right? That we just felt kind of not listened to or whatever the case was, and that kind of sets a tone for that. And hopefully not. Hopefully, not too many people have too many of those, but I think that's probably the average that you can't fully get unscathed with it, but being aware of it, especially as a parent with it. So, all right, so I got two more questions for you. So,
Okay.
for the man, the woman, whether they're 20 or they're a 40-year-old mom and dad who feels stuck kind of in survival mode, wants to do better, but just feels disconnected from their body or not worthy of taking care of themselves, kind of like you had felt at different points. What would you say to that person?
There's two kind of core analogies I use when people are lost. They're not really lost, they just don't necessarily know where they are. And ultimately, most of our patterns in our psyche are leading towards something, even if we don't know. They're trying to compute something and get something. So I was like, if you were to put a word or a feeling on a stick, like a carrot, what do you feel like has always been just out of reach in your life? That no matter how much effort you put in, that word has never really come. Because whatever that word is, whether it be acceptance, love, freedom, belief, whatever it may be, the reason why it keeps moving is because something in your being isn't really accepting it. But that clue of whatever that is to professionals like you and I, that will usually help us know like what you're missing, what you're actually chasing that you've just never known you were chasing. The other thing that you can think about is, are there things, and depending on the psychology of the person, sometimes we're just running from something that we don't realize every choice we've made is just because it's the opposite of where we came from, and we just keep doing the opposite, which in some cases will work. But a lot of times think of, I run this a lot of times where I'm actually coaching someone who's he's a defensive guy in the college football league. And he essentially ended up where he's at because his dad was extremely approval heavy. He had to perform well on the football field to get his dad's approval. And his entire psyche was created around keeping his dad happy and making sure that his dad was proud of him. And he made and did good things, but those areas were already starting to act up in other areas. So like you can run towards something, run from something. Those are usually some of the core things when you're trying to figure out why things are the way they are. Um, there's also sometimes where it's just simply like, if you could be selfish, what would you give yourself? Sometimes it's just having the permission to say that, especially if you've been a people pleaser and you've just spent your time prioritizing everybody else, the questions of what do I need have been so rare, you just don't even know. Like you might find a client call where he's ready, but he doesn't know what he needs because he's been serving and sacrificing. This comes a lot with this in fatherhood, where we lay down our life for our kids, and which leads to another reason most fathers will die for their kids, but most dads don't focus on, will I live for my kids? Which is an entirely different idea of putting myself first and showing them I'm willing to live to move the needle so far for our family that you have the best chance. But understanding like what are those feelings that you're moving to or from, those are core questions that I often go to.
And all very, very, very powerful things. Like the last one you said too, living for your family, living for your kids and stuff of that nature. And that kind of goes back to what you said earlier about it being a selfless act to take care of yourself, even if it's taking a little bit of time away day to day, or maybe a meal that's different than what your family's eating or whatever the case is. And I've talked to so many different, especially entrepreneurs about this, or just workaholics, or just people who are just foodaholics, right? The most selfish thing you can do is neglect your health, because all your family's going to want in the last 20, 30 years of your life is you, just your time. Not the money that your bank account if you worked and made all this money, but you neglected your health in the meantime or whatever the case is. And so it's preparing for that kind of investment in the long term.
I heard this good story with entrepreneurship or building things. If you're building something that your kids won't want to follow, you're doing it wrong.
Sure.
That there are many people who build many enterprises even in the farming community, they'll spend their entire life building the farm, making sure that the land is protected, and in the end, none of the kids want to follow it. If that's the kind of life you're creating, ones where your kids run from it, there's a problem. That there's nothing about that that's normal. And even with what you're saying, if you choose not to work on your health, you're normalizing that other people's priorities are more important than yours. And that will be something that your kids will inherit. That will be something your daughters inherit in their marriage. And they will attract someone. I mean, even this is a little bit scary for daughters or fathers. Your daughter will marry you. Like we are the first masculine love that they have.
Yeah, I love that you said that as well. Because it's not just your kids, it's the people that they're going to be attracted to.
Correct. Everything will be compared to us.
Yes, 100%.
Is this guy like my dad? I always say the dad with a shotgun at the door is the guy that set the bar low. But if you set the bar high for how you treat a woman, how you take care of yourself, how you respect yourself, how you respect them, all of that is the normal they compare every relationship to. So if you want them to have a messed up, distorted mirror or a lens to look through life, pass one on. But if you can clean it up on yourself and get these healthy habits, like if you date someone that goes to gym before he goes on a date, and that's something you did, you can know that that's something she looks for because that's something you modeled of what healthy masculinity looks like.
100%. My last question, sorry, daughter's coughing. Speaking of daughters, my last question with this is, since this is all, this is the Thriving Lives podcast with it, and you've been a member of Thriving Lives now for what, like 14 months or so. To those that are listening, because obviously it's all Thriving Lives people for the most part. What is some advice within Thriving Lives that is really or some aspects of it that have really paved the way to get you to this point right here? What were those aspects of Thriving Lives, and what would you recommend to anybody that is maybe new, maybe it's day one of their journey with us at Thriving Lives in terms of getting to whatever their finish line is? And there's never really a finish line because it's a journey, but you know what I mean.
So this is probably 14 years or 14 months of truth baked in with you, but then 5 years of doing it on and off. When you join a community like Thriving Lives, you don't join for the health plan, you don't join for the meal plan, you don't join for the workouts, you don't join for the advice. The number one thing over 14 months, and you really only get this when you look back after 14 months, is you're paying someone to be accountably honest to every week. And if because this is the thing that I've struggled the most when I avoid checking in, it's because I don't want to be honest with anybody. And being honest with you is the hardest choice that I will make that week. Either I wasn't as good as I needed to be, or I knew I could have did better, or I just needed to give myself grace, whatever category of that is. Joining something where you are forced to be honest and accountable to something outside yourself, to be the real stressor is honesty, because by stressing and focusing on the honesty, you get past the lies that you tell yourself or the seeds of lies that then become something that grows into a beanstalk and takes you to places you don't want to go. That accountability of saying this was a shit week or this was a great week, and it's not even anything you say back, but saying it out in the universe to someone that is listening to it, that gives a crap about me. That is the piece that was missing in all the other pieces. And I realize it's the deeper thing that people don't know when they buy what they're buying. But long term, that's what they're buying is someone to be deeply honest with when life works and when life doesn't.
That's well said. Renee, what do we call that? What aspect of Thriving Lives is that Ben just talked about?
Accountability.
Check-ins.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, yeah.
Check-ins. It always boils back to that, and that's where, I know Renee and I on any sort of, consult call or even just like on future conversations, whatnot, we reiterate the massive vital importance of doing your check-ins. Like you said, it's not even always the guidance that we're going to give back. It's that moment of self-reflection of just owning your choices, your wins, but your struggles that week as well. And if we run from that reflection and the accountability, we don't get anywhere. And that's true in every area of life. No matter where you want to improve at, if you're not reflecting, you're not improving. It's
I
just
mean, I always say, even from a church point of view, every human being should spend an hour a week reflecting on their life, and church just happened to be a good place to reflect on your life. And you don't have to be even all in, like just going to something 1 hour a week and just reflecting, how did I live my life this week and how am I going to live it the next week? That's church's number one job, and its basic function is to get those two primary reflections, and everything else is kind of bonus, in my opinion. And it's the same thing with the check-ins that TLF provides.
well, dude, you killed it. You killed it.
You
That's a
did.
great conversation. I mean, I feel like we could break down each question and do an entire hour just discussing those things. I mean, I know you reiterated a lot of the things that I said, but you also maybe realize a lot of things even on this call with it, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your time with it, and just what would you call them? Your Ben Killoy isms.
Poloisms is what they're called.
Love it. I love it. So again, I appreciate your time, brother. I know everybody who listens will would say the same exact thing. But you got anything else to add, or Renee?
No, it's great. I loved it all. Yeah.
If anyone wants to reach out and have a conversation, Instagram is the best place, Ben_Killoy.
Yes, I will put that on there. I'll follow up with some added information that I can add to like the show notes and posts and stuff about it. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Everybody else, I appreciate your time being on the call tonight. I know we got a lot of good pieces to take home with us. So
And
everybody else,
hopefully everybody I left an impact with that usually haunts them in a good way. But
hopefully so. The people on, please if you got any notes to give me, then let me know. I can pass them on to Ben or go find them on Instagram, which I'll include as well. But otherwise, Ben, I appreciate your time, brother, and everybody else. I appreciate your time as well. Have a great rest of the week and see you guys on check-in.
thanks.
Appreciate you, Ben. Thanks, man.
Bye.